Today's a frightening day in our history. The Albanese government and the Greens and the Teals today did something so stupid to our economy. And worse, obsessed with global warming, they promised to do even more very stupid things in next year's budget. They'll do them together, the Greens and Labor. And this government today looks even more flaky and incompetent now than the Whitlam government. That's because this government, with the Greens and the Teals, today voted to limit what gas companies can charge here for the gas for our energy. They're going to put on a price cap, $14 per gigajoule, not a cent more. Now you may think, well, big deal, because gas prices now are out of control, and the Prime Minister, you might think, did seem to make sense today.
Well, the choice for this parliament today is very clear. You can vote for this plan and vote for lower power prices, or vote against it and vote for higher prices.
But the choice today wasn't between expensive gas or cheaper. It was between expensive gas or even less gas, which is why the opposition voted against this.
I honestly believe that this is catastrophic for economic policy in this country.
Now, basically, the government is now saying that investors do risk putting their money into finding more gas here, which we badly need. There's a new law now that limits what they can charge. But after this little price cap, there'll still be a new law. They only can charge what politicians say is a reasonable price, and who knows what that will be. And investors are thinking, what? How do I know I'm going to make a profit? They're already panicking. A developer of an offshore gas project in Victoria now says today, he says he's worried about going ahead. And all the gas companies are saying, coal companies as well. These price caps, because there's one coming on coal as well, will scare off so many investors that we're not going to have all the new gas and coal projects we are soon desperately going to need. So prices will still go up a lot because these price caps won't actually do much, even the government admits that. But supply will fall. Yet Industry Minister Ed Husic today says, oh, well, this is just a try-on by these miners.
I think the suggestions out of the gas companies and some of the things that they've been saying in the last few days really, they need to take the leaf out of the old story, the boy crying wolf, because they made investments when gas prices were way lower and they were making profits when gas prices were way lower.
Now, I'm not alone in thinking Ed Husic is very wrong. But what is indisputable, of course, is that he's missing vital context, because it's not just this. For a start, the Albanese government is already the most anti-business federal government that I have seen in decades, or probably ever. The Prime Minister is from Labor Socialist Left, and I tell you, is now letting it all hang out. His government is passing one law after another that makes running a business harder, and not one law that's making it easier. And the list so far of what is done in, less than a year is amazing. For instance, this government has already passed laws giving unions more power. It's backed a rise in the minimum wage. It's got new global warming targets that will increase power prices even more. It's increased parental leave. So, if you've got key workers, women particularly, they can leave for half a year at a time. You've got to try and fill in for them. It plans to cut the use of contract workers next. It wants to force businesses to also draw up climate plans and so on. It's been an onslaught. And now something else. Now Prime Minister Anthony Albanese even has a deal with the Greens to advise him on what to do next. Now, before the election, Albanese was very cross if he dared suggest to have some kind of partnership with the Greens. No way would there be a formal deal. He said he knew if there was, voters would run a mile. But to get this price cap through the Parliament, Albanese needed the Greens' vote, and to get them, he offered them a deal. A crazy one that the Greens leader yesterday boasted about.
The Greens have secured a significant package that will help meet the costs for households and businesses to switch over from dirty and expensive gas to cleaner and cheaper appliances. The government has committed to developing a significant package of measures in next year's budget, and they will work with the Greens in development of those measures.
It's hard to know where to begin with that. So the Greens and Labor, they're now going to work in partnership on next year's budget to spend lots of your money to get people like you off using gas and onto using more electricity. All that to pretend to save the planet from global warming. Now, make no mistake about this. This Labor-Greens deal. Here is the government's Energy and Climate Change Minister today confirming this is exactly the plan.
And really it's about providing support for households and businesses to make the best energy choices for them, because electrification and energy efficiency can reduce your bills.
Now this is insane. You just think about it for a second. The government itself in its last budget admitted that gas prices over the next year and a half are going to go up 44%. Okay, that's terrible, 44%. But electricity, it said, will go up even more, 56%. And its new price cap there, it's not going to change much either, right? Even the government says, well, it's still going to be a lot, 47% or something. So electricity prices are actually going to go up more than gas prices. And why? Because we're running short of electricity, which is no wonder because global warming schemes have helped close nearly a third of our coal-fired power stations already. So explain to me how it makes sense to push people from using gas in their homes to using even more electricity when it's electricity that we're most short of. I mean, our energy market operators are already warning that we face blackouts because there's not enough electricity. Yet here is the government and the Greens together working out ways to make us use even more electricity by using less gas. You know, things like gas water heaters. Oh, and on top of that, they want us to buy more electric cars, put them on the grid too. Now, how on earth is all that going to work? Now, it stuns me that people like these politicians are now running this country, and honestly, do not buy their argument that the only reason that we're short of cheap electricity is those wicked liberals in government, you know, they just didn't invest in green power. Here's one of the Teal independents today making exactly that false claim.
It's still approving a number of gas projects and coal projects. But what we do have is we haven't for the last 10 years accelerated transition. We haven't enabled more large-scale renewable to come into the system, which does offset these spiking prices when it comes to fossil fuels internationally.
Doesn't anyone pick these people? I know journalists say, oh, look, it's rubbish. For one, you know, a lot of the green schemes back then, they're from Labor state governments as well, like Victoria, okay? And the fact is, research from the Australian National University show that we actually led the world in investing in wind and solar power, when you measure it in watts per person. The problem hasn't been the lack of investment compared to the rest of the world. It's that wind and solar just don't do the job reliably. And getting more of that isn't going to do that much to get us out of this crisis we're now in. Now, what we saw today, a government price cap on gas with a deal to get us to use more electricity instead, a side deal with the Greens. That makes me wonder if the Albanese government is in fact already worse than Gough Whitlam's.